see, this is like the absolutist thing that I'd say almost like what makes me sort of almost not really tear up, but you can even hear like it's sort of an emotional thing. It's like characters like King Bradley in Full Metal Alchemist, like how he bites the sword with his mouth and then he stabs it into Scar's chest, and Scar should have died there. I always hate that he doesn't die. It would have been enough. In his final breath with his bloody hands, he does the transmutation circle for his brother, and then he dies there too. And the beauty of that would show you that right, like Bradley never failed to kill his target when he gets in a fight with somebody. So I guess maybe Greed, but he does technically kill Greed. So like it's like this absolutist full commitment to something. When you're fully committed, whatever it is, whether the good guy, bad guy, right? Like Light Yagami, absolutely being consistent the whole show, giving it his all, never giving up, never, questioning his measure and his resolve, right? That's what the absolute is like. Like he even says it himself, right? He's so smart, so self-aware. Like if Kira is caught, then he's evil. If he wins and rules the world, then he's justice. That's not his opinion. That's a fact. Like if you're good enough to catch me and you think what I'm doing is wrong, then go ahead and do it. Go ahead and try. Right, L, try near, try mellow. That's why lines like even, I'll take a potato chip and eat it is sort of mocking L that in a deeper way that people might not fully get. You make fun of the line like, oh, it's funny, but you got to think how Light is actually thinking there. Look at me, Al. I'm just some little kid studying for his exam, eating potato chips. Look at me, Al. You're the world's greatest detective, and look at me. I'm just eating a chip, so how could I possibly be Kira? Right? You're wasting your time watching a kid eating chips. Right? Meanwhile, he's actually passing divine, righteous judgment. So it's like, you're my fool, basically, Al. That like, oh, look at me. It looks like I'm just eating chips, but I can be changing the world and acting as a god, right, in that moment to show, like, look how smart I am, that I can do this, right? Like, just watch me, Al. Like, I'm showing you up. It's not just that I'm providing an alibi, but I'm directly, the way that Light always likes to do, I'm directly sort of taunting you to show, like, the witness to alibi is Al myself. So look at me. I'm just an innocent little kid eating potato chips, right? There's something more to it, right, in the characterization of it. It might sound like, oh, duh, of course that's what it is, but the fact that people make fun of it, there's nothing really, like, I get why it seems like a funny line, but if you understand that, it's not really funny at all. It's Light mocking L, right, to himself, like, oh, look, you're the world's greatest detective, wasting your time sitting here watching me eat potato chips. Look at me, I'm just eating a chip. All right, I'll take a chip and eat it. That's all that you can see, because that's all I let you see, because I'm smarter than you. Like, that's all I'm going to give you to work with. So the other thing is, like Light's resolve there, or King Bradley, right? Like, again, his will, that he doesn't give up, he puts forth full effort all the time, right? Like, even his arms get blasted off, his eye gets poked out, and the bro still has the last word of he grabs his broken sword with his fucking teeth and stabs Scar, and Scar should have fucking died, right? Like, this is the absolutist will that is so valuable in storytelling, because of course you're inhibited constantly in real life, but like, it doesn't matter what side you're fighting for, it doesn't matter morality, right? When you show that kind of ability, that's an inspiring thing, because it doesn't matter, right, what you're fighting for, because you see, that's the point. Like, even if you were fighting on the other side, you could still learn from him and like, wow, he fought so hard for what he believed in, or for what he was fighting for, which I think people misunderstand that too. He's not fighting for Father. He even says it, like, to fight on behalf of my own life and nothing else. He never really, even, he's an atheist, people think, oh, well, but Father's trying to become God. He never really bought into all that. He was always his own man. He always doubts that, right? He respects power more than anything, but he never directly has an interaction with Father or anything like that. So he's not really doing it for that reason, right? He even said, like, my life has been set for me, so I'm just doing it within that. So what he values more than anything is that effort, like the willpower to kind of self-actualize. So King Bradley from Brotherhood is an absolutist character, 100% deserving, right? Quercus, Alba from Miles Edgeworth. These are the three characters that I could point to. They happen to be villains, but King Bradley is interesting for that reason. Like, if you wish to see me struck down for all these atrocities, use your own hands to do so, not God's. Like, that's exactly what an absolutist would say. If you think what I'm doing is wrong, then use your ability to stop me. Don't rely on God, because God doesn't exist. If you really want to stop me, then stop me. Like, right, with your own ability, the same way that I'm doing what I'm doing with my own ability. Right, the Darwinism of ideas and ability, that you would have to actually stop me to make it happen. So yeah, like Light Yagami's resolve and consistency, King Bradley's will, that he values that more than anything, like the will to act and fight. So that's why he even respects that he's being given a hard time by the humans, because that's impressive that such lowly creatures are able to give him such a hard time. Right, he kind of enjoys it almost, like, and he hates when people are sort of halfway, like when greed is, Kimberly and him are kind of similar in that way, right? It's the consistency. Kimberly doesn't really care what you do or believe in, but he hates when people are hypocritical, like pride, trying to steal a human's body, or even Ed trying to get his body back, but trying to be all morally righteous about it or whatever. Not wanting to use the Philosopher's Stone. So Kimberly has a shade of that, but he doesn't act quite on it with the same level of will. But King Bradley is like, again, ability defines all, trumps all. Don't give us words, don't give us pretenses, don't give us appearances, don't give us emotion, give us ability and action. Either do it or don't do it, and do it fully. And if you do it what you believe in as fully as I do what I believe in, then may the best person win. Right, but instead, because you might say, oh, it's because he's a homunculus, but he's the one weakest homunculus in the sense that he can't regenerate, and he's, ultimately a human kind of, hybrid, but yet he works so hard, he trains so hard, he's skilled, right, he can't regenerate. So in a way, it's like he's pushing himself with that will and the ability to such a degree that makes it beautiful, because it's like, that's what he seems to value more than anything else, is the potential, the willpower, the ability, right, that he has that consistent quality of like never giving up and pushing himself in a way that humans can do too. It's not because he's a homunculus, right, because the other homunculi that are able to regenerate and are arguably more powerful than him don't do even what he does. So that's the human willpower plus the homunculus, super speed and strength, but it's ultimately his own doing, like, that his willpower is so strong. So those three characters, obviously Quercus, Alba's refusal to give up, his genius ability to rebut anything that's thrown at him, right, that indomitable will that he brings to the table, right, that is unbelievable to witness, right. These three characters are iconic, all worthy of the Absolutist title, all worthy of the highest praise. And I think I've compared them. I mean, I guess King Bradley, I could do like a character points comparison, but King Bradley would win because of his physical prowess, and he is pretty smart too. But, it depends. Like Light with the Death Note versus Bradley, but assuming, I don't know how you would do that, but like if King Bradley had if King Bradley, was still the Führer of Amestris, but he was also, that wasn't his real name, and then Light had to find it out, and then he is sending people to look for Kira, like his officers, and Light still has the notebook, and he's living in Amestris somewhere, and Quercus Alba was trying to usurp the throne from Bradley. I think Bradley would have the advantage just because he's so physically imposing, which the other two are not. But the other two exist in a more real-world setting, although... So I guess by that logic, actually, Quercus Alba is the most impressive, because King Bradley has the benefit of being a homunculus and obviously appointed to his position too as the Fuhrer by, father. And then Light has the notebook. So Quercus Alba doesn't have anything. He's just a human who's a war hero, who's an ambassador of his own merits, who's a leader of smuggling ring for 10 years, right, and gets away with it. Like, he's just a man who cannot be stopped, who goes against, Interpol, and he goes against the prosecutor's office, and he goes against Edgeworth and Lang and Francisca and everybody, Poleno, the other ambassador, and all this combined still isn't enough, and you need some Deus Ex Machina bullshit samurai dog and just his willingness to toy with you and not leave when he had the chance to. Yeah, those are three great characters who exemplify. I'm surprised I don't have one from a movie that I can think about the same way. Like somebody who just is so consistent in what they do. I guess almost Caden Catard from Synecdoche, New York, that he's so. It's hard to explain exactly. It's not quite the same, but his character portrait is so memorable. Like, he's so consistently obsessed with his work, right, that even when Sammy dies, the guy who's playing him, right, he says that, like, I didn't jump, Sammy. A man stopped me before I jumped. Get up. Like, a man just jumped off a building and killed himself, but because he was meant to shadow you and mirror you, you're upset that he didn't follow your stage directions or, like, your writing and what you would want him to do as part of that, but so you're so disconnected from the fact that it's fiction. No, I love the theme of that movie, which it gets convoluted, and I'm not saying it's perfect, or even that I'd fully understand it, but it's like, think about an artist or a creative person, writer, director, whatever, and you're trying to tell this story, right, that encapsulates every part of life, like your own life or life overall, right? And so he takes it in a literal sense, and then it starts to kind of mimic itself, right? Where it shows you at the end, like the warehouse within the warehouse within the warehouse, right? So in the course of telling the story, you would tell the story of telling the story of telling the story, right? And it keeps going. So the character he's writing about is, it's kind of what Seinfeld does in a way, or Curb Your Enthusiasm, but in a more dramatic sense, like, so he has the warehouse in which he's telling the story, but within that warehouse, he has another warehouse because the character within the story is also the same thing, doing the same thing. So, like, it's this endless cycle of, right, you're exploring that, but to explore that, you have to explore it, in a self-aware way, and then you keep going. So it's like you never get to the end of it, and it makes you question the whole purpose of what fiction and all of this is in the first place. So, right, it's kind of like you're searching for the meaning in what you're doing, more so than just trying to create some sort of product. So that character is actually a lot deeper and much more, again, driven through and consistent than you might think. Right, he starts off, he's making this play, he gets like a grant to do it, and how he keeps getting this amount of money, and whether all this is even happening in reality or not is hard to say, but like, he gets so consumed by his work that it's like, oh, that becomes reality, that becomes his life, and right, it's like the story within the story. Art imitates life, life imitates art, and you can't distinguish between them, and you're trying to find meaning in either one, using one to find meaning in the other, right. So yeah, that character is really what stands out. The fact that it's one of the best character studies in the history of fiction, even if the movie itself is still very good, but it kind of is a little pretentious and kind of insists upon itself a bit. I can understand why it maybe would have lost people a bit there. It gets sort of convoluted. It's one of those things like, a Stanley Kubrick type thing that would be glorified. So, like, why is 2001: A Space Odyssey glorified so much, but not this, right? Where you can find deep meaning in it. Obviously, 2001 had special effects on its side ahead of the time, but, yeah, that's a great character study. Scarface is a great character study where he's kind of driven through this motivated, criminal's version of the American dream, as Roger Ebert said. But he's that's a movie that I feel like people misunderstand too, because it operates on the entertaining level, like, look at the way that it, I don't know, it's entertaining on a surface level, but the fact that his character is so consistently written and realized actually takes it to a higher level, because it turns into like this much more existential work of like a character who, I don't know, like views everything the same way. Like, just if he's good enough to get away with it, he keeps pushing and pushing and pushing, and he's motivated, and he lives life, to the limit, obviously push it to the limit, that it takes on a much more profound thing, because, right, that was his whole point. Like, that's why he was successful. That's why he's able to get away with it. That he pushes himself so far, right, that he doesn't hold back. He's not inhibited. He doesn't let anybody stop him. He's motivated. But then once he achieves success, he almost doesn't know what to do with it, in a similar way that people might do in real life. But it's like, if somebody's so successful outside of the system, right, how can they listen to, like, restraint, right? The whole life that they've been living has been outside of, on the edge of everything, which at the beginning you could almost respect. Like, he's poor, he's trying to make a way for himself. I can almost respect that. But now once he becomes successful, it's like he doesn't know what to do anymore with it, because he doesn't have any ego in that way. He has, you might think he does, but, like, he does it just to do it. He's not like Sosa and others, where that's like more the bureaucratic side. Like, what is it all for? And he almost doesn't know what it's for. He didn't, he didn't really do it for the money. That's the thing. Like, Tony's not a greedy person in the way that these other people are, where they have money for the sake of money. He's in it for the experience. He's in it for the willpower of it. Like he's going to do what he does, and nobody can stop him, and that's it. Right, and so he wills it into being in a way that is impressive. So he's consistently that sort of strong personality type that, I don't know, I had a better way to explain it, but I can't remember. But it's definitely a profound character study that people might miss and think, well, it's just this criminal, and he's just doing these entertaining things, and he's just, there's some action, and that's it. But it's not even just the self-destruction of the character, but again, it's the consistency of the character. The same reason why he was successful is the same reason why he goes down. That he's this, uninhibited, fully passionate, motivated, just self-driven guy, right, who does what he does and it works out for a while, but then it also is the reason why he died. So it's hard for me in that moment when he's talking to Sosa, right at the end, it's hard for me to question him there, because you might be like, you should be more restrained, you should be more, humble, Tony. But if you had been, you wouldn't be talking to him there in the first place, right? His whole kind of motivated spirit is what got him there in the first place. So how can you tell somebody that kind of, I can't think of the right word to describe it, like just that immense determination and belief in yourself and willpower, right? Almost this impulsiveness to go along with it, but this headstrong, quality, that's what got you there. That's what got you your whole life. That's what made you successful. That's what got you the girl and the money and the drugs and the house. And so how can you tell that same person that what got you there, now don't do it anymore, right? You can't do that. It's almost like you can't turn it off. Like if you were a soldier in the army, you would think the same way, right? You can't just turn it off because that's how that person lived, right? They were always like that all the time in every way. So of course they're going to be like that then. So even if it gets you killed, right, they went out the way that they always lived, which was, again, always like over the top, always pushing the limits, living life to the edge, living life to the fullest. So I can't really question that. Like, oh, why can't you just be humble now, Tony? Why can't you just be laid back? But he was never like that. So how could you expect him to be like that now? Even American Psycho, Patrick Bateman could have worked like that, but there's two mistakes with the writing. That regardless of the book, it could have been changed. Like, that he's more self-made, right? That he's not a Nepo baby, that, oh, his dad's wealthy and that's why he's successful, right? Show that he's very impressive himself, or that he's self-made. Then think about it this way. This is like a good characterization, right? Pretend that Patrick Bateman is self-made, like he grew up in an average family, or he's poor even, and he works really hard, he's really smart, he's really capable, and he's just better than everybody else. And that's why he's able to get perfect grades and be perfect and start his own business and become a millionaire, a self-made millionaire. So now when people try to tell him what to do, of course he'd dismiss it and look down on them like, who do you think you're talking to? I can do whatever I want. I can sleep with so many girls, and I'm handsome, and I'm perfect, and I'm smart, and I'm self-made. And so it's like somebody who's done everything so successfully, right, in every way, and they're so much better than everybody else, they feel sort of entitled in a way, not entitled like to their success that they've earned, obviously, but to, oh, society tells you can't sleep around with too many women, but that's just because they're not good enough to do it. They don't deserve it. They don't have the opportunity. They're just pretending they don't want it, right? But who are they to tell me that, right, when I've been more successful than they all are, when they wish they could have done what I've done, right? Who is anybody to tell me what to do and what not to do when I'm better than everybody else, right? And I've been so successful and validated, and they'd suck up to me. Those same people wish they were me, but yet they're going to tell me what to do and what not to do. They're only jealous. They just wish they could do it, that they had the opportunity to do it, so they pretend they don't want to do it just because they don't have the option, right? This would be that sort of mindset that kind of character and personality type would have. And also, right, like, so you would, even for your, like, basis impulses, it's like, I can do whatever I want, because, like, who are you to stop me? I'm better than everybody else, and even validatingly so, that you really are. You're a self-made millionaire, etc., right? How can we question you that you really are better than everybody? So if you're so good at a process, then you can invalidate the process altogether. Like, if you're a criminal and you're good enough to get away with it, then who can stop you, right? So it would be the same thing, like, sure, he can go and kill Paul Allen, and he can kill anybody he wants, and kill the homeless guy, and he can get away with it because that might be his basest impulse, but that's his choice. He's entitled to his base impulse because his ability allows him to get away with it. So morals are just for people who can't, who aren't smart enough to get away with it, or who are controlled and who are, mindless sheep. It's for the mindless masses, but you're too good for that. You're above that. You're better than that, right? It's just a tool to control them and keep them in line. But when you're dealing with a person like this, oh, you're just above all that. That's, that's just a way to hurt the masses, but you're not the masses. You're better in every way. You're self-made, you're successful, millionaire. You can sleep around, handsome, women love you. So, like, it's the type of person who is never told no, and, everybody maybe sucks up to them. So, of course, they would just do whatever they want and feel entitled to it because their ability sort of justifies it. Oh, I can understand the rules would apply to everybody else, but they don't apply to me because I'm better than everybody else. So then what? Right, like, it's just a tool to keep the half-mast animals herded like the sheep that they are, that they can't control themselves, they can't do what I can do, they can't self-actualize, they can't, they need to be controlled like the animals they are. But then in this case, you're superior, or you're, it's sort of a validation. It's similar to the Quercus Alba thing I was talking about, like how, he's a war hero. He's celebrated. Everybody loved him. He's a self-made ambassador. He's been so successful. And then all of a sudden, you decide to basically you become a criminal. It's like you're almost entitled to it. Like, look at all the good I've done. I'm so much more capable than everybody. I'm a self-made ambassador. I'm a war hero, right? Everybody would love me and do that. So it's like, and I'm good enough to be a smuggler and get away with it, and why not? And I deserve the money that I get from it. Look at all my accomplishment and achievement. I'm just better than everybody. So how could you question that, right? And it's true. It ultimately, even when you look at them and you kind of moralize with them, oh, you're a bad guy, this and that, it doesn't matter. You still are better than everyone else. You're better than, you're good enough to get away with it, then nobody can stop you. So you feel validated, like everything you do, you're so good at. You're a war hero, you're an ambassador, you're this and that. So even like with Light's a similar effect. He's a, very smart student, and he's getting perfect grades, and he's, so smart and capable. That to him almost validates what it's all about. Like, you might think that's weird. Oh, that gives him the right to be Kira, but it's like, he's so smart and capable that why not, right? Your ability kind of merits it, and that's really the measure he uses. Like, if you're good enough to catch me, then so be it. But like, yeah, like he feels validated in that because I'm so smart and capable that my ability warrants it. That like I'm so much better than the ordinary, pathetic, average person that why shouldn't I be the one who gets to do this? And in a sort of a literal sense, that is validating. Like, who could have done what he did better than what he did? Pretty much nobody. If you think maybe Al could have. But that's basically what the story is showing in a way. Like, he really was the perfect one to get it. What he did, how well he did it, right? Nobody could have done it better. That's what he says at the end, and it's sort of validating. Nobody can say that he's wrong in that sense. Like, not so much, moral, that's just subjective, whatever. Like, who else could have done it and come this far? Would they have kept going? Like, who would have outsmarted the world's greatest detective in L? Who would have, reduced worldwide crime by 70% and gotten away with it for this long? Who would have done all that? And the answer is right, nobody really could have done that. So you give Al the notebook and he has the same motivation or whatever, he would do probably similarly well. But then Light would have caught him or given him a hard time. Some, the way these characters are portrayed, like they're very special. So basically it would have come to the same thing. Mello and Nier,